I last saw him in court last year and also in 2022. And that was the first time that I had seen him since 2015. So it had been 7 years.
And what was your reaction when you saw him that time?
I was worried about seeing him because I hadn't seen him in so long, and I'd been talking about him for so long and, trying to let the world know what a con artist he is and what a liar he is. And I'm sure he didn't want to see me. And I thought when I saw him that I might feel very angry and, want to punch him or something. But then when I actually saw him, I sort of felt blank. I felt nothing. And I realized it's because there's nothing he could say to me that would mean anything at this point. There's nothing he could say that I would believe. There's nothing he could say that would change anything. Even if he said sorry, I know he wouldn't mean it. And he just kind of disgusts me, and so I looked at him and I just thought, I have nothing to say to you. And the first time he wouldn't look at me in court in 2022, but last year we came very close to each other a lot of times in the court, we came very close to each other. And he tried to look at me that time. And every time he tried to look at me, I just looked away. And that was my way of saying, screw you. You mean nothing to me. And you didn't take me down.
What would marry you?
Well, look, I think there's a lot that goes into it. It was not like he suddenly came to me one day and said, hey, the Pope's going to marry us. And I said, oh, okay. It just didn't happen like that. It was a very slow, meticulous, very clever, cunning, actually, weaving of this web of lies. And it happened over months, and it started because he wanted a big Catholic wedding in Italy. And I said, well, how are we going to do that? I'm not Catholic. And I know that the Catholic Church doesn't like to marry divorcees. And so he spent months trying to find supposedly a priest that would marry us in a Catholic church. And then after months when that didn't work, he said, well, I'm going to go to the Vatican and ask for a favor. He had told me that he had done work at the Vatican in the past. I had seen paperwork talking about it. I heard other doctors talking about the fact, and it made sense that he would be called in to do work at the Vatican. I mean, he's Italian. Was a leading cardiothoracic surgeon in Italy. He's world famous. There was no reason he wouldn't be called in to consult at the Vatican. But then he went to the Vatican and he called me afterwards, and that's when things just went crazy. And he said, I have great news. They're going to help us. They're going to help us find a priest to marry us. And oh, by the way, I met with the Pope and he said he would marry us himself. And of course, my first reaction was, come on, don't be stupid. And I said, the Pope doesn't even marry people. So I didn't believe him at first. But then I looked it up, and the Pope actually can marry people if he wants to. He had married very recently, before that, 20 couples at the Vatican. He married another couple on the plane. So he actually can. And Paolo convinced me, it took a little while, that because he said he was the Pope's private personal doctor, that the Pope wanted to do him a favor, and he wanted to help the Pope because the Pope had been looking for a couple that he could marry publicly, and we were that couple. So it was a very intricate, clever story. And it took me a while to believe him because it did seem ridiculous. And I understand why people, if they hear my story, and if you just hear that I thought the Pope was marrying me, you go, come on, really? She thought, I get that. But it just wasn't that simple. It was very clever. Necessary, I think.
And how are you today? Is the last
I'm great.
question.
No, I'm great. I'm great. Busy. I'm working. I have a serious boyfriend now. That took a while for me to trust anybody again, but no, I'm very good, very happy.
Well, Benita,